When you consider the scope of the cost of ongoing corruption, abuses of power, general mismanagement, and things of that nature, it becomes clear why the city has financial woes and why residents aren't receiving the basic services that their tax dollars should be going towards. Attempting to quantify with an exact dollar amount is difficult because without a forensic audit and deeper attention to detail into all aspects of city business, there are most likely situations that I'm not even aware of yet. And sticking to the issues that I am aware of, however, I can at least say to some degree that there are a lot of costs to the taxpayers and a lot of abuse of taxpayer dollars that are ongoing. So among calls for unity, we have to consider at what cost are we willing to be unified, and is it really necessary for unity when we're talking about potential criminal enterprise? So let's start with Parks and Recreation. Each year, travel baseball teams play tournaments and practice at our city's facilities practically year-round for about 10 months out of the year at least. The city has the responsibility of prepping and maintaining these fields, and as such, it's been recommended previously that the city charges $25 an hour for baseball leagues that practice on our facilities. Additionally, it's already on the books that the city is supposed to charge $500 for a weekend rate per day for baseball tournaments that have games on our fields. So when you do the math, it comes out to be around $175,000 that the city is losing by not doing this. So breaking down the numbers, Sammy Davidson Complex, 4 fields, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week for 4 weeks at $25 an hour times 10 months, $64,000. Same with Phil Hardin. Crestwood, it's 2 fields, so it's more like $32,000. And then there's baseball tournaments where, like the Grand Slam tournament in April, there are 4 complexes for a weekend tournament. It's about $6,000 that we should be collecting, but the city's never charged more than $2,500 for this tournament, so we're just losing money there. Then there are the Caruso showcases where a minimum of 6 fields are used, so it's between $1,500 and $9,000 lost, and for whatever reason, either there's no one paying for this or it's been discounted heavily. So your total possible revenues for city's baseball facilities actually collecting the fees that they're supposed to, or that they should, is about $175,000 that we're just not collecting. Plus there is, of course, concessions, which the annual audit report showed are running at a $13,000 loss to the city. So even the concession stands at these baseball games and these baseball tournaments aren't even profitable to the city for whatever reason. I don't know if that's mismanagement or if there's a lack of accountability for the funds, but we can say from the audit report that there is in fact a $13,000 loss for the city. Moving on to Public Works, there's an $8 million bond for paving, which much of that went towards buying equipment that you could stop by the municipal garage and take a look at because a lot of it's just sitting there. Then there's the mayor's executive professional services budget. Last year that was $395,000. Proposed for this year it's $456,000. And while I'm obviously not arguing that every dollar in the mayor's professional services budget is wasted, it's difficult to see how there's actually a need for that much money in the mayor's professional services budget. And it's likely the case that much of this is abused and wasted. So there's also excessive overtime, vehicle and gas usage, and abuse of vacation time throughout multiple departments. So cutting out the excessive overtime that's just unjustified or that there's no real need for it, I think would bring the city's payroll down considerably, as well as cutting out the number of vehicles that are assigned to personnel who don't actually need them, and then having more accountability for the amount of times per week that people are filling up the gas tank in city vehicles. And then of course there is the abuse of vacation time, such as the employee who was paid overtime while on vacation to Disney World. So while all this is going on, the city has a loss of basic services and city functions, and this is noticeable to the taxpayers because you're not seeing the same amount of quality and services in your residential neighborhoods. So one thing that you should look at is, for example, community development. In the planning division, it's been reduced from 5 city planners to 1. City planners have left because of various frustrations, but imagine being a master planner and then watching the city contract out the downtown master plan for $90,000 to LPK architects, and then the planning division has never seen any master plan and they've never been involved at any step in the process. So of course I'm sure it's frustrating working in the planning division, and for that reason many people have left and we have 1 senior planner left. These are the types of activities that of course would lead towards the planning division being reduced, and it's difficult to imagine how the planning division is operating functionally with only 1 city planner. Then there's code enforcement, where the director of code enforcement has been absent for some time now while on administrative leave with pay. The code enforcement officer for Ward 5 has also been acting as cultural affairs director, and another code enforcement officer has a long list of duties not related to code enforcement, at least on paper. People want paving, but we see a lot of equipment laying around that we spent taxpayer money on that's not in use. People want grass cut. We contract out a lot of grass cutting. People want rundown houses to be condemned and cleaned up, but our code enforcement division is not at its full capacity. And people want informed direction for the city, but we have a planning division that's been decimated. Moving on to Lakeview Golf Course and Union Station. Both of these city facilities are running at a significant loss. According to the recent annual audit report, the golf course is operating at a $250,000 loss each year. This continues year after year despite other parties' interest in purchasing this property from the city, and including one party interested in building a subdivision, which of course would lead to additional property tax revenue for the city. Union Station, according to the annual audit report, is operating at a $260,000 loss and has been consistently losing over $200,000 since at least 2008. We have space in Union Station that isn't making any money because it's being used as lavish office space for a code enforcement officer and for the mayor's assistant, which is a part-time non-civil service position. Looking at more waste and abuse, landscaping, just in the events that, or the situations I've been able to look into. Downtown landscaping, there have been projects in which the city has attempted to circumvent the bid process, but that's not all. The city has paid over $40,000 for a project in which only about a $10,000 landscaping job was actually done. Then a year later, much of this was redone, and the plants died again within a matter of weeks, so then that had to be repeated once again. And that's only the situations that I've become aware of. There are likely many scenarios similar in which the city is losing tens of thousands of dollars at a time. It's extremely difficult for a council member to truly and objectively quantify the degree to which the taxpayers are being defrauded and having their money wasted and abused. This is because we have been deliberately kept in the dark since day one. Even today, after it's already been settled that council members have the legal right under the Mississippi Code 21-8-27 to communicate directly with city employees without going through the mayor's office, I'm being prohibited from communicating with a public works employee about a paving index. A paving index is a systematic process for essentially grading or ranking streets in Meridian in a way that will allow for informed processes as we pave streets. While I have the right to speak with an employee knowledgeable on the subject, the employee in question has been given strict instructions not to communicate with me. This is precisely the type of situation that continues to keep council members in the dark and keep us unaware and uninformed. This administration has been able to trick council members into believing that our role is essentially secretarial, that we should spend the bulk of our time acting as a go-between for constituents' needs and communicating those issues as work orders to the administration. Long ago, there should have been simple processes in place for citizens to call or log their issues in a way that the city secretaries already on the payroll could pass that information along as work order requests. The City Council has an obligation to tend to the city's finances and should be much more hands-on in understanding how the city's budget operates and how the city's operating with the budget we provide. We've been given 30 minutes for each department in next week's budget meetings. 30 minutes for each department to put together a $56 million budget. To me, that's a joke, and calls for unity are great political talking points, but at what cost should we be unified? This is, obviously there are multiple instances where there's abuse of taxpayer dollars, and in the meantime we're struggling to provide basic services. So if that's what you would like to be unified in doing, you could count me out. But we could, however, become unified in taking a stand against the way our city has been operating for way too long now.